Welcome, welcome. It is my honor to declare open the 535th Convocation of the University of Chicago. Today, we come together to celebrate the inauguration of Paul Alivisatos as the 14th President of the University of Chicago. The remarkable carillon fanfare that introduced today's ceremony was the world premiere of Augusta Reed Thomas's newest composition, aptly named Crescat Scientia Vita Excalator, the university's motto. Let knowledge grow from more to more, and so be human life enriched. You have just heard the carillon bells growing from more to more, with that penultimate, dramatic, resounding, and optimistic chord comprising all 72 bells and 100 tons of the Laura Spelman Rockefeller Memorial Carillon, chiming together, which wonderfully symbolizes the coming together of our university community for this special day. Please remain standing for the invocation, which will be delivered by the Dean of the Rockefeller Chapel.
Good morning. Presidential inaugurations are occasions of renewal for the entire community, and especially during these challenging times when we are reminded that each breath is a gift, anticipated but never promised. It is fitting that we begin with a word of thanksgiving for the joy of sharing this occasion, mindful that we bring with us our own faiths and philosophies of life. I invite you to pause in your own way, to reflect, to meditate, to pray if it is your custom, united in intention to face this moment with gratitude. Let us begin. For the joy of learning and the wonder of discovery, for accomplishments that create momentum and disappointments that demand recalibration, for memorable conversations between teachers and students, for meaningful exchanges between chancellor and president, for the hidden labors of all who make learning here possible, for the quiet toil of all who make dwelling here pleasurable, for the foresight of the founders of this university, and for the generosity of those who ensure its future, for the courage to uphold each rising generation as we venerate our elders and bid the fallen farewell, for all people, acknowledged and unsung, let every heart give thanks. Amen.
Welcome once again to the 535th Convocation of the University. And of course, that was the carol on fanfare we were expecting. As our community convenes for the 535th time, I would like to share with you a little of the history of Convocation. The very first University of Chicago Convocation occurred on January 2nd, 1893. And similar to today's ceremony, it was a gathering of the faculty, students, staff, and trustees of the university. On that day, led by our founding president, William Rainey Harper. By design, the first convocation occurred at the beginning of the second academic term of the university. There was no formal ceremony when the first students began their coursework in the preceding fall, because Harper wanted classes beginning on October 1st of 1892 to appear to the university and its friends as if it were the continuation of a work which had been conducted for 1,000 years. And thus the assembly in January 1893 was the first gathering of the university community. Harper named the gathering Convocation, a gathering of people assembling for a special purpose. It was soon agreed that regular convocations should continue, a tradition we maintain to this day. At that initial event, Harper laid out the goals of Convocation: to grant degrees, to look back over work completed, and forward to the opportunities and necessities of the future, and to come together as one university, acknowledging that while it has several parts, it is one community. Harper viewed Convocation as a chance to bind together into unity the many complex and diverging forms of activity which constitute our university's life and work. These have remained the goals of our convocations ever since. To this day, we continue with the word convocation. We do not use the word commencement for our degree granting ceremonies, because we prefer the traditions that Convocation has for us, and because this provides us with opportunities to have special convocations beyond those dedicated to the celebration of graduations, such as the 287th Convocation for the opening of our new law quadrangle, the 423rd Convocation at the time of our centennial, and the 525th Convocation at the 125th anniversary of the founding of the university. Today, we once again have a special convocation, our 535th since 1893, in which we are all delighted to participate as Paul Alivisatos is inaugurated as president of the University of Chicago. The many parts of our university, joined by our friends from other institutions and our city, come together to welcome Paul Alivisatos and listen to his vision for our university and the many opportunities to come. And by doing so, we affirm our participation in this great institution and the importance of its mission. It is now my honor to introduce our next 5 speakers, representatives from the university's faculty, student body, staff, alumni, and our neighboring community, to say a few words of welcome to President Alivisatos. Offering a welcome on behalf of the university's faculty is Eve L. Ewing. Ewing is an assistant professor in the Crown Family School of Social Work, Policy and Practice, and an associate faculty member in the Department of Sociology. She is a sociologist of education, whose work is centered on systemic racism and social inequality, and the role that K-12 educators, policymakers, families, community members, and young people themselves play in understanding, acknowledging, and disrupting these social problems. Professor Ewing's book, Ghosts in the Schoolyard, Racism and School Closings on Chicago's South Side, was published by the University of Chicago Press in 2018. The book received the Outstanding Ethnography in Education Book Award from the University of Pennsylvania and the O.L. Davis Jr. Outstanding Book Award from the American Association for Teaching and Curriculum. Professor Ewing is also director of the Beyond Schools Lab, a member of the Committee on Education, and a faculty affiliate at UChicago's Center for the Study of Race, Politics, and Culture, and the Center for the Study of Gender and Sexuality. Representing our students is Vishrath Venkataraman. Vish is starting his 5th year as a doctoral student in the Integrative Biology program, and I am very fortunate to work directly with him in my own lab in the Department of Organismal Biology and Anatomy. Vish earned his undergraduate degree at Berkeley and an MSc in paleobiology from the University of Bristol in the UK. His dissertation research is taking an interdisciplinary approach to understanding the evolution and development of sensory systems. Offering President Alivisatos a welcome on behalf of our staff colleagues is Jennifer Kennedy, Director of Student Centers in Campus and Student Life. An alumna of the university, Jennifer has devoted her career to facilitating the sense of belonging for our students that she experienced during her time in the college. An exemplary colleague and professional, Jennifer represents the important contributions that our staff make to the university's mission. Representing our alumni is Margaret Mueller, President of the UChicago Alumni Board. Mueller began at the university as a graduate student at large and later joined the Master of Arts program in the Social Sciences. Mueller is now the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Executives Club of Chicago, and she continues to engage closely with the university to create and cultivate lasting connections with our alumni population. And lastly, I am pleased to introduce Reverend Julian Deschazier, Senior Pastor at the University Church, to say a few words on behalf of our neighboring community. Another alum of the university, Reverend Deschazier, has a long-standing reputation for leadership in Chicago and on the South Side, and serves on multiple committees aimed at facilitating productive collaborations between the university and our neighbors on key issues of mutual importance. Let us welcome our first speaker, Professor Eve Ewing.
Good morning. Good morning. My dear colleagues, invited guests, thank you sincerely for the honor of commemorating this historic occasion. I was asked by the President to use this welcome as a moment to offer him some words of advice as he begins in his new role. And I found myself moved unexpectedly to speak on the matter of indebtedness. The matter of debt is one which is, of course, frequently discussed in the world of higher education. Generally, we speak of the monetary debts that make us uneasy and that constrain our actions. But here, I refer to a different manner of debt. In 1982, Audre Lorde wrote, "May I live conscious of my debt to all the people who make life possible. May I live conscious of my debt to all the people who make life possible." President Alivisatos, my advice to you, offered in a spirit of humility, is to remember that all of us owe mighty debts, and that today you enter this role in a state of indebtedness. Your debts mercifully are not financial in nature. I hope and assume, I don't know your business like that, but your debts are moral and ethical debts, because you now preside over an institution that owes much. And there will be many who tell you that that indebtedness is primarily to the honored trustees who are gathered here, or to the lenders who have allowed us to have nice buildings and laboratories. But I urge you to remember that these are not the only people to whom you are truly indebted. I invite you to lead each day with the question of how we might repay what is owed to those who may not have proxies in the room to make demands for recompense. From the indigenous peoples on whose lands we gather today without permission or good relation, the Odawa, Ojibwe, and the Potawatomi, to the enslaved people whose bodies, children, and labor were stolen by Stephen A. Douglas, whose resulting wealth contributed to the establishment of this university, to scholars like Georgiana Simpson, who contributed to the intellectual life of the university in the area of German philology in her case, only to be banned from the residence hall because she was Black, to the Japanese American students who were denied admission to the university during World War II because their presence would threaten our lucrative war contracts, to the 4,000 families who once called this neighborhood home, who were displaced through the project of urban renewal in order to protect the university's interests, and to our students today, who make our lives amazing and who make this the best place to teach and learn alongside them through their creativity, brilliance, tenacity, insights, curiosities, and perhaps most notoriously, extremely hard work, and who ask in return that we protect them, that we build a culture of care to ensure that that work is healthy and sustainable, a request that we have often failed to fulfill. President Alivisatos, if this university is to be an institution worthy of your time, of the shared efforts of those assembled here today, it is only thanks to the sacrifices made by these people and by many like them, named and unnamed. Speaking for myself, I am encouraged daily by the work that students, staff, faculty members, and community members have done, not only to demand that we become a worthy institution, but also, in accordance with our way of doing things, to unearth the evidence and the stories of those to whom we are indebted. From the University of Chicago Medicine Trauma Center that saves countless lives every day, which exists because the university was called to account by our students and community members, to the archivists and other scholars who worked hard to uplift the legacy of people like Georgiana Simpson and to help us understand our entanglement with the legacy of chattel slavery, to people like my former student Kenji Kuramitsu, who was the one who taught me about the story of the Japanese American students that I just shared, which he in turn learned from another former graduate student, Eric Longowski. When we use our aptitude for critical questioning to face inward and demand better of ourselves and one another, the University of Chicago, not the abstract institution, but the people who comprise it, we are capable of tremendous collective good. So, to paraphrase Audre Lorde, President Alivisatos, I beseech you, live and work each day in your presidency, conscious of our debt to all of the people who have made the life of the mind possible. And in the spirit of courageous leadership, dream with us so that we may answer the beckoning of history toward a university worthy of their sacrifice. Thank you and good luck.
Welcome and good morning. And thank you, Eve, for beginning this day with much necessary stirring of our minds and consciences. When I heard about the appointment of President Alivisatos and heard that Chancellor Christ would be here, I almost wanted to begin today with the heretical "Go Bears." And then I realized Chancellor Alivisatos' much longer history with Chicago's delightful winters might mean that his own transition from California must have been a lot smoother than mine. And so it is my greatest honor when I begin on behalf of the student body of the University of Chicago to say not welcome, but welcome back. The Greek historian Plutarch, in his Lectures on Listening delivered to a young Nicander, remarks that hearing is the deepest and most emotional of the senses. And so it is perhaps appropriate that we began today by listening to beautiful music. For the University of Chicago is a symphony, it's an emergent phenomenon, comprised of 1,000 tones, voices, and players at myriad levels. While our faculty set the pitch and tone for our questions and research directions, graduate students who explore those directions every day, creating new suites and movements, are exceptionally versatile archivists, librarians, and technicians who are ready to play in any key and support those research directions, as well as the eager young piccolos of our undergraduates who re-excite us with every class, and of course, the fantastic custodians and support staff who are constantly working to ensure there are no breaks in the music. Now, this also means listening to the dissonant voices, the poignant, beautiful tritone, or the powerful cymbal and triangle demanding a change of direction. As the sad events of last year reminded us, this also means we need a renewed commitment to listen to those voices that have for far too long gone unheard. The University of Chicago is not only a classical symphony proud of its traditions, sometimes it is a contemporary improvised performance, constantly changing and developing as new voices add new value. Sometimes this might mean non-traditional collaborations, like philosophers discussing animal ethics with our biology students, or the amazing interdisciplinary work at the Stefanovich Center for the Foundations of Knowledge. Sometimes this may mean changing hierarchical roles from supervisors to collaborators, and from mentors to, dare I say it, Vicky, friends. These changing roles and this emergent phenomenon means that to appreciate the unique intellectual life of the university, this music, requires someone who is ready to listen and to listen to all those voices and the people behind those voices. Those of us who've seen President Alivisatos visit our core facilities or hanging around by the quad are excited to have at the helm somebody who's ready to listen at all those levels, including perhaps, as we noticed, to some of our most adorable voices, the ducklings of Botany Pond. We are also delighted to have someone who understands the multidimensionality of human thought and effort, as he's acquainted with the multidimensionality of nanocrystals in his path-breaking empirical work. We're also happy, finally, to have somebody who is going to contribute his own unique voice and insight to the intellectual life of this university through his commitment to teaching. We began with a reference to Greek literature. In a nod to UChicago's own expansive listening habits, because we hear voices from all over the world, I will close with a quote from my own mother tongue, Tamil, which, as Professor Whitney Cox will remind you, has been studied at Chicago for decades. From the 1st century poet Thiruvalluvar, Selvathul selvam sevichelvam, Achelvam selvathul yellam thalai. He says, the greatest of all wealth is the wealth obtained by listening. And for your wisdom, insight, and the wealth of listening that you bring, President Alivisatos, we bid you welcome.
Good morning. As you heard, my name is Jen Kennedy, and I am very honored to represent the staff of the University of Chicago in welcoming President Alivisatos home. President Alivisatos, you and I have a great deal in common. We are both Chicagoans, both graduates of the college, and I believe share a deep affinity for this institution. In the spirit of that commonality, I hope I can offer a few words of advice as you reacquaint yourself with campus and adjust to your role. In my 4 years as an undergraduate, I learned a great many things that have helped shape the person that I am today. From our esteemed faculty, I learned to read closely, think deeply, and question rigorously. From my peers, I learned how exhilarating it was to approach my personal interests with the same vigor as my academic pursuits, and the joy of carrying conversations from the classroom late into the night, usually on the Burton-Judson fire escapes. And as a first-generation college student, I learned a great deal from another population at the University of Chicago, the staff. My resident head, college advisor, and the student affairs professionals on campus helped me understand that there was a place for me at the University of Chicago, that my contributions were valued, and that I had every right to call this place home. In the 19 years since, I've had the privilege to work alongside many of these same individuals to continue building that sense of belonging and community for our current students. I've also had the joy of partnering with staff whose work maintaining our buildings or balancing our budgets is less visible but no less important in keeping the university operating flawlessly. I can say with confidence that our staff is the most talented and dedicated group of people in higher education. They are enthusiastic and nimble, undertaking every challenge they are thrown with UChicago's signature creative and disciplined approach. This group of individuals work collaboratively across every area of the university, often imperceptibly to others, to ensure that students, faculty, and alumni can meet their loftiest goals. President Alivisatos, your reputation as a collaborator is well known, and the staff of the University of Chicago are poised to work with you to realize the full potential of this university we love so much. My advice to you is to utilize this wellspring of talent as you shape the future of our institution. And in the meantime, as you revisit cherished areas of campus and discover all that is new since your days as an undergraduate student, I encourage you to stop by and meet the staff members who support these programs and spaces, and let us welcome you back home.
Hello. What a momentous day for UChicago alumni. This is only the second time in our university's history that one of our very own esteemed alums has returned home to this storied institution as its president. It is a thrilling moment for the entire alumni community. We could not envision anyone better suited to lead the university at this pivotal moment and into the future. Not only do you have a true, clear love of this great institution, you are a global citizen with a humanist perspective and a brilliant scientific mind. Since its inception, the University of Chicago has been a paragon of intellectual curiosity, scientific discovery, academic rigor, and public discourse. We are known as the place where great minds come to learn how to lead and solve the most critical problems that we face: racial equity and social justice, quantum computing and mechanics, impact investing, upholding democracies, and on and on. Our alumni go on to change the world in countless ways, from being leaders and activists in their local communities to receiving Nobel Prizes. As you know firsthand, President Alivisatos, that the profound role the university has played in the personal and professional trajectories of our incredibly accomplished alumni cannot be underestimated. Yes, many come from privileged backgrounds, and also many don't. I am the child of a mechanic and a stay-at-home mom who had no one to mentor me or guide me. My life changed the moment I stepped onto campus. I would not be who I am today without the University of Chicago community. I received my master's degree in the MAPS program at UChicago in 1997, in between earning a BA and PhD at other institutions. In your own words, I knew even then that being a student here would change my life. Those 2 years transformed me. People often marvel and ask me why I am so committed to this place that some might have viewed as a brief stopover on a longer academic journey. My answer is always the same: because it changed my life and opened my mind to possibilities that I didn't even know existed. Identifying latent potential, nurturing it, cultivating it, and then sending it out to change the world has always been and must continue to be our mission. And no matter how far we go, whether we settle and work in a Southside community or find our purpose thousands of miles away, what brings us together is our University of Chicago experience. An immediate sense of belonging is created when you meet an alum for the first time. How do we activate this sense of belonging and engagement with the University of Chicago for the good of our communities and our world? I admire your bold vision to create the most engaged community in the history of our university. UChicago alums are ready to help make your vision a reality. As your listening tour of all of us continues, we are all listening to you. A student spends a number of years on campus, but they are an alum for life. So as we approach 200,000 alumni around the globe with lifetimes to give, I call on you to consider the role alumni play in moving us forward, and we will be ready for your call. Thank you.
friends in this space and well-wishers participating across the globe, students, staff, and faculty, to the Board of Trustees and to the new president of an institution that I've known both as student and in my role as pastor of University Church. Thank you for this invitation to do something that cannot possibly be done in 3 minutes, to speak for the community. In 10 years now, I've had a relationship with this campus that has felt equal parts enlightening, concerning, hopeful, strange, heartwarming, and heartbreaking. I've shared final moments with dying members at Mitchell, broken bread with student organizers, diffused tension between family outside of a new trauma center, and sat with young men who just had a puzzling and painful interaction with the university police. And what their lives share with the lives of students that come from Greece or faculty that come from gilded institutions is that they all interact with the university hoping for a better life. Hoping, expecting even that even a brush past greatness will leave behind the residue of greatness on their garment, or in their intellect, or capacity to engage in the world more brilliantly. But that ultimately, what every encounter with the university amounts to is an expectation that my life will be improved because you are here. This is a pressure-filled expectation, one that seems a bit easier to meet when a person is a student or works here, and it feels more, I've been searching for the right word, and my 5-year-old daughter taught it to me, icky. It feels more icky and abstract when that person who's expecting a better life belongs to the community. But it is a fair expectation. And if I would offer any advice coming in, it would be to look at everything that is being done by the university right now. And if any of it is being done to the community, consider doing it with the community. The body has 12 systems, right? Muscular, nervous, digestive, etc. And if any of them stop working, the body is in trouble. It won't matter how well the rest of the system is functioning if it does not contribute to the health of the rest, if it is not made vulnerable by the rest, if it does not love the rest, to the extent that there is no rest or outside community, us and them, that doesn't exist because there's such mutuality, such interdependence in our life together. Mr. President, our bodies teach us what is true about this moment right now, that our communities will thrive when all of its systems work better together. A relationship only buds when those involved view each other as equals, which means not only will the university change and make life better for Woodlawn and South Shore, etc., but the university must be willing to be transformed by the South Side. Because on every block there is deep wisdom and people who you will lead and serve and must do so, and people who you must be led by because they too have greatness to offer. In this vulnerable dance, there are some things that we know best and some things that they know better. I am sure I speak for many in hopes that the university will make better the many schools and nonprofits and houses of faith and clinics and service organizations and people because you are here. And because we all depend on each other for our health, that you will lead the university to be transformed by the wider body. Because now, more than ever, life is depending on it. Thank you and welcome.
It is now my great pleasure to introduce Professor Srikanth Reddy to read a selection from his latest book, Underworld Lit. Reddy is a poet, scholar, and literary editor whose scholarship focuses on modern American poetry, theories of global and transnational literature, and contemporary Asian American writing. At the university since 2003, Professor Reddy teaches a variety of courses in literary studies and creative writing, with an emphasis on interdisciplinary connections between the arts and humanities. Underworld Lit is a long narrative poem cast in the form of lecture notes for an imaginary course in the humanities, and could be described as a satirical love letter to the core. Please welcome Professor Reddy.
It's an honor to join you in celebrating the inauguration of Paul Alivisatos as the 14th president of the University of Chicago. Today I'll be reading the opening pages of a long narrative poem titled Underworld Lit, which follows a year in the life of a fictional professor at a fictional university who's experiencing fictional issues with tenure and who ends up going to hell. I'm not so sure the inauguration committee actually read the book before inviting me to this event. Maybe they wanted to celebrate the university's capacity for institutional self-critique. Maybe they wanted to show President Alivisatos what he's in for. 1. In the inky, dismal, and unprofitable research of a recent leave of absence from my life, I happened upon a historical prism of Ashurbanipal that I found to be somewhat disquieting. Of an enemy whose remains he had abused in a manner that does not bear repeating here, this most scholarly of Mesopotamian kings professes, I made him more dead than he was before. Prisms of this sort were often buried in the foundations of government buildings, to be read by gods, but not men. Somewhere in the shifting labyrinth of movable stacks, I could hear a low dial tone humming without end. In Ashurbanipal's library, there's a poem, written on clay, that corrects various commonly held errors regarding the venerable realm of the dead. Contrary to the accounts of Moulian, Madame Blavatsky, and Kwasi Benefo et al., it is not customarily permitted to visit the underworld. No, the underworld visits you. 3. For the past several years, I've taught an introductory course on world literature at the university where I am presently employed. The offering has frequently proven to be a disappointment, both to myself and to the students, some in headscarves, some occasionally dressed in fatigues, who register for this seminar in order to satisfy their humanities requirement. As far as classes go, it was an almost painless experience. The instructor is fairly intelligent and enthusiastic about the material, but is unreceptive, even intolerant, of anything that is not a poem, or a poem in prose form. That one was real. Made me question things, including the value of higher learning. Looking over the feedback last summer, I began to consider a different approach. There would be new assignments, self-assessments, and regularly scheduled office hours this time around, followed by a transitional withdrawal of black gowns through the spring morning mist. And because I know comparatively little of this world, I've decided to work my way up from below. 4. Hume 101, Introduction to the Underworld, cross-listed with Divinity and Comp Lit. In this course, students will be ferried across the river of sorrow, subsist on a diet of clay, weigh their hearts against a feather on the infernal balance, and ascend a viewing pagoda in order to gaze upon their homelands until emptied of all emotion. Texts will include the Egyptian Book of the Dead, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, the Mayan Book of the Dead, the Ethiopian Book of the Dead, and Muriel Rukeyser's Book of the Dead. The goals of the seminar are to introduce students to the posthumous disciplinary regimes of various cultures and to help them develop the communication skills that are crucial for success in today's global marketplace. All readings in English. Requirements include the death of the student, an oral report, and a final paper. 5. I promised my wife that I would call Dr. Song today. After putting Mira down for her nap and slipping outside for a smoke, I lifted the receiver. The sound it emitted, which I've heard without pause countless times before, seemed to me otherworldly now, like somebody's finger playing on the wet rim of a crystal bowl in a derelict theater before the wars. It's hard to say how long I stood there listening. It may have been seconds or seasons. The rings of Saturn kept turning in their groove. For reasons beyond me, our seminar had already moved on from late medieval Europe to developing world underworlds. I dialed 1-800-INFERNO, and before the first ring, a woman's voice answered in heavily accented English. "Is it you?" "I think so," I replied. Outside, the honey locusts sprinkled their pale spinning leaves in real time. Focusing on one as it fell seemed to slow the general descent. "O creature, gracious and good," the faraway lady recited, as if reading against her will from a prepared text, traversing the dusky element to visit us who stained the world with blood. I could hear rain trickling in a gutter spout on the other end of the line. "Please," I said into the receiver, "remove my name from your list." I'll read one more section, 6. While outlining the requirements for our first critical essay of the term, I noticed a hand rising in world historical time at the back of the classroom. "What if I'm ideologically opposed to revision?" asks the red-headed boy in a new slave's t-shirt. A city bus unloads its pageantry outside the window. A handful of sparrows erupts from the equestrian statue on the quad. I remember Sun Tzu's advice to humanities instructors, which I review on index cards at the outset of each academic quarter. Hold out baits to entice the enemy, feign disorder, and crush him. "What exactly is your ideology?" I ask, stroking my beard. "I'm a Zen Nex-like crypto-objectivist," replies my interlocutor. "How about you?" I have no choice but to improvise. "Pro-recycling? Anti-genocide?" A voice from beyond my peripheral vision says, "You're nothing but a pseudo-Kantian neoliberal mirage with meta-narcissistic tendencies." "No, I'm not." "Yes, you are." "No, I'm not." "Yes, you are." Welcome back, President Alivisatos.
honored to introduce two special guest speakers who have known and worked alongside President Alivisatos for many years and can speak to his character as a leader. Carol Christ became the 11th Chancellor of the University of California, Berkeley in July of 2017. A celebrated scholar of Victorian literature, Christ is also well known as an advocate for quality, accessible public higher education, a proponent of the value of a broad education in the liberal arts and sciences, and a champion of women's issues and diversity on college campuses. Chris spent more than 3 decades as a professor and administrator at UC Berkeley before serving as president of Smith College from 2002 to 2013. She returned to Berkeley in January 2015 to direct the campus's Center for Studies in Higher Education and was appointed interim Executive Vice Chancellor and Provost in 2016 before being named Chancellor the following year. As a member of the Berkeley faculty since 1988, President Alivisatos had many opportunities to collaborate with Christ over the years in various roles, culminating with his appointment as Executive Vice Chancellor and Provost in 2017 when Christ became Chancellor. Stephen Chu is the William R. Keenan Jr. Professor of Physics and Professor of Molecular and Cellular Physiology at Stanford University. Dr. Chu was the 12th U.S. Secretary of Energy from 2009 to 2013, becoming the first scientist to hold a cabinet position, during which he was personally tasked by President Obama to assist BP in stopping the Deepwater Horizon oil leak. Prior to his cabinet post, he was director of Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory and professor of physics and of molecular and cell biology at UC Berkeley, professor of physics and applied physics at Stanford University, where he helped launch BioX, a multidisciplinary institute combining the physical and biological sciences with medicine and engineering, and head of the quantum electronics department at Bell Laboratories. President Alivisatos succeeded Chu as director of the Berkeley Lab in 2009. Dr. Chu is past president and chair of the American Association for the Advancement of Science and served on the Senior Advisory Committee to the directors of the National Institutes of Health and National Nuclear Security Agency. He is a member of the National Academy of Sciences, the American Philosophical Society, the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, and 8 foreign academies. Chu was awarded the 1997 Nobel Prize in Physics for his contributions to laser cooling and the trapping of atoms. Please join me in welcoming Chancellor Christ, followed by Professor Chu.
I'm honored to be invited to speak on the occasion of Paul Alivisatos' inauguration as the 14th president of the University of Chicago. The words that keep echoing through my mind are from Catullus, Ave, atque vale, hail and farewell. But they're not quite apt. Catullus uses them to begin a eulogy. This is more of a commencement, both a completion and a beginning. I worked with Paul very closely when he served as Executive Vice Chancellor and Provost of the University of California at Berkeley from 2017 to this past summer. We were 2 in a box in the geometrical metaphor of executive leadership. We shared vision, we shared strategy, we solved problems together. We wanted those we worked with to receive consistent answers and advice, no matter which of us they talked to. In my years of working with Paul, I developed profound admiration for him. He has far-reaching vision for what he often called transformational partnerships. His model was Berkeley's long relationship with the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, of which he served as director, and whose deep synergy with the campus has indeed been transformational. He brought that same aspiration to newer projects, a research park and satellite campus at Moffett Field in Mountain View, California, adjacent to NASA Ames, a developing partnership with the Medical Sciences campus across the bay, UCSF. We talk a lot at the University of California about building housing projects as 3 Ps, public-private partnerships. Paul coined the term 4 Ps, public-private philanthropic partnerships, and he worked with some of our most important benefactors and friends in developing 4 Ps, the Weil Neuro Hub, the Baker Bioingenuity Hub, the Discovery Project, which imagines a discovery experience for each undergraduate, our new College of Computing, Data Science, and Society. Developing a project like these successfully requires an unusual combination of capacities, not just vision, but the collaboration essential for a joint vision, an entrepreneurial spirit, and meticulous attention to implementation and detail. But Paul, as provost, did not just attend to big ideas and strategies. He always had time for the myriad small problems that come over the transom every day. He dealt with them with attention, care, and patience. He's a superb listener, and he's always willing to see things in a new way and to change or bend course if circumstances seem to call for it. He's a creative problem solver, even when those problems are small and intractable. And he has extraordinary humanity and kindness, always a necessary bedrock. Paul was also committed to attacking difficult structural problems, the university's financial model, its capital program, even its bureaucracy. His ability to move back and forth between large and small dimensions of these thorny issues, always with a sense of their relevance and consequence to each other, always impressed me. Paul is that rare kind of academic who can bring to bear all the problem-defining and solving skills honed in his remarkable research career on institutional challenges. This ability displayed itself in a remarkable way in our dealing with COVID, where Paul imagined the organizational structure that would enable us to respond to a crisis whose dimensions and character changed even as we responded to it. Paul had a phrase he often used when we faced a particularly thorny problem. "I'll put in some cycles on it," he would promise, and those cycles always got us to the appropriate goal. In my work with Paul, I came increasingly to appreciate how deeply the University of Chicago had shaped him. I saw it in many ways: his deep seriousness about the aims of education, from questions of curriculum to who the university should educate, to the public role and purpose of institutions of higher education. I could see the shaping influence of the University of Chicago in Paul's habit of inquiry, his deep listening skills, his characteristic willingness to think of things in a new way. And I could see the influence of the University of Chicago in his appreciation of the humanities, of literature, art, and music. Paul's an avid reader, a talented photographer, and a lover of music. These aspects of his intellectual life, an intellectual life that took shape here, have led to what the chemist Thomas Cech has called intellectual cross-training. Cech has argued that a liberal arts education is important for students aspiring to any profession, not because it produces scientists who like the opera or literary types who read the science section of the New York Times, but because it creates the capacity of mind to address problems with different methodologies and tools of analysis, a capacity essential in trying to solve the complex problems of our day. Paul has exactly this breadth in his habit of inquiry. Much as the University of Chicago has shaped much of Paul's intellectual and imaginative character, I hope that he brings to Chicago not only his Berkeley experience, but the core values that propel the Berkeley campus. Berkeley's Haas School of Business developed a formulation of these values in 4 principles that I believe capture them well. The first is question the status quo. From its science to its politics, Berkeley believes in questioning received assumptions. It believes not only in free speech, but free inquiry. As fundamental to advancing understanding in every discipline and in every area of life. The second principle is confidence without attitude. That's probably enough said. The third principle is students always. I see this principle deeply in Paul, always eager to learn and see things new. And the fourth principle is beyond yourself, a principle that speaks to the deep social purposes of the university, from its education of students to the research that makes our world a better and more just one. I will end with some advice from former University of Chicago President Hannah Gray, who has been a heroine of mine for many years. In her memoir, she writes about the temptation in assuming an executive position to try to do everything that needs doing right away. She argues that a leader needs a sense of pace and priorities, a sense of what to do at the beginning and over what length of time, and how to distribute one's goals. She stresses how important it is to listen, even in a university you know well. Quote, to discover the nature and state of the institutional culture and where it seems to be heading, to talk with as many people as possible, to understand what's on their minds, their intellectual interests and ideas and hopes for their institution, the quality of the scholarly and scientific work they observe around them, the trends and directions of their disciplines, and the projects that held most promise in their thinking. This is the gift of such positions of leadership, the privileged entry into so many intellectual worlds. And now some final words. At a conference I attended some years ago, a president from a college in India repeated the blessing her culture bestows on its educational leaders. Paul, I close by repeating it to you. May you have the wisdom of Solomon, the courage of the lion, the cunning of Machiavelli, and the stomach of a goat.
Well, it's very hard to follow all the wonderful speakers. Beforehand, you notice I brought up a laptop, but that's just my security blanket. There are no prompters. As Mozart might have said, it's all in here. But let me just start by saying what an honor it is to be at this occasion. Paul Alivisatos has been one of my favorite people for many decades. I think we knew each other as just scientists wanting to collaborate with each other. He was making a new class of quantum dot nanoparticles, and I wanted to use them for biology, but they weren't compatible. And so he would make something and send them to me, and I would try something. And in this way, we tortured single-cell animals and never did quite get it at the time, but that was life. As time went on, I just want to say another thing before I go into Paul. I'm terribly happy to be here for two reasons. First, Paul and Nicole. But second, of all other institutions of higher learning in the United States and in the world, the University of Chicago is the one I look up to the most. And I will explain why that is. And I don't tell that to any of the other institutions. I'm going to dart around, but let me tell you why. There was a time when the University of Chicago wanted me to consider joining to set up a new institute that would unify the physical sciences with the biological sciences and the medical school. And my wife and I came around, looked at it very seriously, and I was intrigued. And during that time, talking to faculty members, looking in homes, it was a serious trip, I decided that the attitude of the faculty members was perfect, because they weren't asking for what I was thinking about necessarily. They were just wanted to discuss things, and they had a way of letting it be known, sometimes in a blunt way, other times in a little bit more polite way, but never cutting words or backing off. And I said, these people are so intellectually honest. They don't sit by and remain silent if there's something that someone said and they disagree with. And then they could get up and talk with each other. And so I thought this was an environment where you had civil discourse. You don't necessarily agree. In fact, you kind of like to not agree to figure out what's really going on. And so I thought, to me, this was perfect. This reminded me of Bell Laboratories, where people made a point of disagreeing just to see whether it was true or not. And so that institution, Bell Laboratories, really shaped me. And then when I came here, I thought, this was fantastic. Now, unfortunately, in this little story, I have to say that I did want to come. I was recently divorced. My kids were living with me half-time, with their mother half-time, and I asked, do you want to come to Chicago? And they're California kids. And so they said, no way. And so I had to tell Chicago, I'm sorry, I can't come. And then I did something naughty. I said, what Chicago wants to do was a really good idea. So I gathered 3 other friends, Dick Zare in chemistry, Lucy Shapiro in developmental biology, and Jim Spudich in biochemistry. We met at my office on a Saturday, and I said, you know what Chicago's trying to do is a really good idea. We have other things. We have engineering. We have most of the places in place now. Why don't we start something like that? Which we did, and that was BioX. So for that, I was very grateful to the University of Chicago for giving Stanford the inspiration to do this. And indeed, we wrote a little white paper. It was approved by the President Provost the next week. A year and a half later, 160 million was raised. A couple more weeks later, 300 million was raised. We were off, and the building was completed in 3 years. So you guys can do better, but you finally did get your BioX building. But let me go back to Paul and tell him about his character. I came to Berkeley Lab. I was a graduate student and a postdoc, and began as an assistant professor at UC Berkeley. But then I went on a leave of absence, promising to come back in 2 years. Okay, it took 27 years. But when I came back to become director of LB&L, I came back with the intent of saying, this is one of the greatest scientific institutions that trains young scientists. And I would say second only to the University of Chicago. When I look at the young scientists that you've trained, or they've started their careers and gone to great heights, Berkeley's second. And with Berkeley Lab rather, maybe 3 dozen who went on to get Nobel Prizes. And I said, we're cruising towards a climate catastrophe. If we could get some of the best scientists to think about how they can really dig in and do something in science that would give us better choices, that will help solve the problem, that would be a real contribution. So I took that job with that intent, huddled with a couple of close friends, Paul included. Paul says to me, Steve, we don't know anything about energy. I said, Paul, neither do I. We're going to teach ourselves. And in this little group of Paul, me, Alex Edel, a few others, we met maybe every week, every other week for a couple of hours in an office, no agenda, no grant to pine for. It was what could we do, what can we think of? And it grew into half-day retreats, open mic forums, this, that, and the other thing. And Paul was a true co-conspirator, co-leader in figuring out how the lab was going to think about this thing way before it was becoming fashionable. This is in 2004, 2005. We didn't know where money was going to come from anything, but we thought it was that important. And again, as we taught ourselves, I learned something else, that when you go, and this is especially true in institutions of higher learning, people think we're here to teach the students. That's partially true, but I would say that students do more of the teaching to the professors, even in the undergraduate level. And when you teach the students and you listen to the students and they ask a question, all of a sudden they're putting something in a frame you might not have ever thought of. And this back and forth of us teaching each other, you've got a great president, because when people say he listens and he learns, and it grows from that. Let me tell you a little bit more about the University of Chicago. I would say, you know, you've had many, many great presidents, but there was one that stands out among all. I'm going to have to get his name right, so I'll flip over my laptop. You know who I'm talking about. But in any case, let me just say, why is this outstanding president so brilliant? It's Robert Maynard Hutchins, and he was brilliant for a couple of reasons. First, he got rid of the football team. When we recruited Gerhard Casper to be Stanford's president, he had to make this significant adjustment because we do have a football team. And by getting rid of the football team, Hutchinson made it so that the University of Chicago would put academics first and foremost, and there would be no other distractions. The other thing that I liked about him was he wanted the undergraduate body to have a common experience, a common core of knowledge. Now, that common core of knowledge, it doesn't necessarily mean 400-year-old books written by white men, but a common core of knowledge that all the students should partake in, and so they could discuss with each other what the faculty thought for this part and this time, the really important things that were developing in the world. And so it was those things that I thought set the University of Chicago apart from all the other institutions. Now, in closing, I want to talk about two things. Unfortunately, it's somewhat a bit of giving advice, and that's always risky, to give advice to people who haven't asked for it. And and I want to quote Oscar Wilde, and said, the only thing to do with good advice, I'm not sure this is good advice, Paul, is to pass it on. It's never of any use to oneself. So here's the advice. Right now, the country is in a very difficult position. And we have, and part of what made this country great, what made the country great was we are largely a country of immigrants. Immigrants have contributed much to the life and breadth and depth of the world. Out of Chicago's 92 Nobel laureates that are associated with the University of Chicago, I dare say more than half might have been immigrants. And I would say that right now we're at a crossroads. There are people in government who say, well, some immigrants are okay, others are not. If you're from Russia or China, maybe we don't want you anymore as graduate students or postdocs. And if you came here from Russia or China, notably China, you're a naturalized citizen, you're raising your family here, maybe we don't fully trust you because you may have relatives in China. And this has set a pall on the country. And so far, I'm very, very worried about this and doing my best to figure out what great institutions like the University of Chicago or an MIT or a Caltech or a Stanford can do about this. Because what made America great, what made America prosperous, was that we were a free and welcoming society. And when you came here, you were accepted as an American, and your children were accepted as American, and that's what made America great. The university I see is a set of shining cities on a hill. We're the keepers of the things we value more than anything else in this country and in the world. And it's for that reason, above all else, the University of Chicago, as one of the pillars, if not the primary pillar of this, should take this very seriously. This is a responsibility. It could be dangerous, but Ben Franklin once said while they were signing the Declaration of Independence, that was a declaration of independence, which meant they were revolting against Great Britain, which means they become traitors. And Ben Franklin said, "We must all hang together, or surely we will hang separately." And so I think the great research universities, private research universities, should all hang together and tell the country, Congress, the President, anyone who will listen, what an important task this is. So we can continue in the best ideals of discussing openly, freely, in a civil way, the multitude of ideas so that we become closer to what we all seek, something closer to the truth. Thank you.
It is now my pleasure to welcome violinists Janet Sung and Yuanqing Yeo to perform an additional piece by Professor Reed Thomas. Originally composed at the request of former President Zimmer for the 2011 dedication of Mansueto Library, the piece, entitled Double Helix, is inspired by the molecular structure of DNA and an appropriate choice to welcome a president who is also a chemist. It is now my honor to introduce Joseph Neubauer, Chair of the University of Chicago Board of Trustees. Mr. Neubauer will perform the induction of the President.
Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the Board of Trustees of the University of Chicago, I would like to welcome you to another significant turning point in this university's illustrious history. Today marks the formal investiture of the University of Chicago's 14th president, Paul Alivisatos. Despite COVID restrictions, many important guests, from faculty to students representing the student body, our local community, as well as from the city and the state, and leaders of other esteemed institutions, have gathered here to bear witness and to celebrate with us. In a world wrestling with polarization, intransigence, and attacks on truth, we're here to reaffirm our principles. The purpose of this great university is knowledge, seeking it, creating it, testing it, and sustaining and disseminating it. The best way to achieve this goal, indeed, the only way, is to insist on free, robust deliberation, discussion, and debate. We're at once vigorous, but always respectful. These so-called Chicago principles have led over many years to our university's eminence and desirability as a place of knowledge. Only 13 other presidents have led the University of Chicago in its 131-year history. Among them with us are former President Hannah Gray, Don Randall, and Bob Zimmer. Each left an indelible mark on the culture and excellence of this august institution. Hannah, Don, and Bob, however vigorously we might debate the value of certain of your ideas, we're united in the admiration of your leadership and grateful to how you have helped make the University of Chicago the envy of top-ranked institutions of learning in the world. Personally, I have long believed that the essence of a great university is the faculty and the students they attract. This learning community is the engine that drives everything else that we as a community seek to achieve. From economic opportunity, social justice, new knowledge, humanistic inquiry, and all that leads to technical prowess required to sustain a succession of solutions and lead to profound innovation. On behalf of the Board of Trustees, I would like to publicly thank the members of our faculty for their thoughtful and essential contribution to the Presidential Selection Committee process. While trustees of members of the board of the Selection Committee diligently met every Saturday morning for almost 4 months, mostly via Zoom, to deliberate, we met and consulted frequently with a variety of experts on relevant issues. The faculty in this institution was especially helpful on matters relating to scholarly achievement, academic leadership, and campus culture. Insights derived from our frequent discussions with the Faculty Advisory Committee deepened our understanding of the very essence of this university and the complexities that we'll have to navigate as we seek to confront the many challenges ahead of us. Because successful university leaders tend to enjoy long tenures, especially here at Chicago, not many board chairs have the privilege of leading a presidential search. Those of you who know me personally know how grateful I am to Chicago for giving me, an immigrant and the first student in my family to go to university, a scholarship, and for training me to tackle life challenges. that I've faced since graduating from this university over 50 years ago. And while certain business and investment challenges might have seemed tough for me at the time, rarely have I felt that so much at stake that I should fail to measure up to what was expected of me here in the presidential search. But once we met Paul, I began to breathe more easily. As you heard from many other speakers this morning, he has a long and distinguished academic career as a scholar, administrator, and inspiration leader. He's also a renowned scientist who owns many patents to his name, an entrepreneur who started several companies. But most importantly to us as a committee and to me personally, he indeed is one of us. We asked Paul during long sessions what he considers a foundation to all his lifetime achievements. And his immediate response was my undergraduate education at the University of Chicago. Interestingly enough, Paul came to Chicago at the college intending to study math. Bob Zimmer was one of his early professors, apparently so demanding that Paul decided to switch to chemistry. During one of our many discussions with Paul, he described what a broadening lifetime experience the core curriculum was. And I quote, "In math and science," he said, "there are concrete answers. You're either right or wrong. But the humanities and social sciences are far more nuanced. My studies at the core give me the courage and the impulse to look underneath the immediate and obvious answers." And what does our university need at this moment in time, if not a leader skilled at looking beyond the immediate and obvious, who's dedicated to drawing on the full breadth and expertise available on this campus to define, prioritize, and address the extraordinary things that this faculty and this student body can achieve as we seek to harness knowledge to the engines of progress. So welcoming a new president is an affirmation of all that we have achieved, but really marks the beginning of the next stage in the university's growth as a place where people, ideas, and scholarship are brought together to expand knowledge, debate issues, and make the world a better place. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to introduce and welcome President Paul Alivisatos.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you, Joe. I'm pleased and honored that so many of you have joined us here in Rockefeller Chapel at one of the watch parties across the campus, our global centers. Many of you from home, thank you for being a part of today's ceremony. I'd like to acknowledge the elected officials and special guests who are with us today, as well as Joe Neubauer and the Board of Trustees. Thank you for your welcomes, Eve Ewing from the faculty, Vince Venkataraman from the students, Jennifer Kennedy from the staff, Margaret Mueller on behalf of alumni, Reverend Deschagier representing the community. I want to express my warm appreciation and thanks to my mentors, Chancellor Carol Christ and Professor Stephen Chu. I learned so much from you, and it means so much for me to have you here today. I'd like to acknowledge the past presidents, the university faculty, the delegates representing the various colleges and universities, the deans and officers, our partners and neighbors from Chicago, and in particular from the South Side, and the students, staff, and alumni who are with us today. Finally, I want to offer my sincerest thanks to the faculty and staff whose hard work and dedication have made today's event possible. Events like these don't simply happen. They are the product of countless hours of planning, preparation, and skillful execution. thank you for the time and energy you put into today's ceremony. An inauguration is about far more than welcoming a new president. It is an occasion that is both solemn and joyous. It's a moment for our community to reaffirm the foundational values that have shaped this university. It is a time to reflect on the arc of a common journey and to commit to bringing our collective imaginations, talents, and diversity of experience and perspective to bear in new and innovative ways. The word investiture, when used synonymously with inauguration, has its origin in ceremonies of clothing, in the robes of a new office, but also reflects the meaning of invest, as in to clothe or commit our capital. How should we invest together? This morning, as I accept the great responsibility of the presidency of the University of Chicago, I want to acknowledge and honor our university's enduring values, as well as the leaders before me who have brought us to this moment. I would like to address why now is the right time. In fact, it is imperative that we fully engage with the world around us. We are living in a period of distinct challenges as well as remarkable opportunities. As we cautiously reemerge from the pandemic and begin to reckon with its consequences, we must also grapple with political division, growing inequality, unnerving changes in the global political order and economy, and a challenge that is unprecedented in human history, that of global climate change. Yet we also are at a moment when a vaccine for COVID-19 was created in record time. And the first steps of immunoengineering taking place here at this university are so promising. When we can combine the power of the arts, policy, medicine, and data science to co-create new opportunities with and for those living in an urban environment like ours in Chicago and others around the world. When the prospect of understanding the workings of the human brain and addressing the diseases that can afflict it seem within reach. When machine learning and quantum information science are emerging and poised to usher in a new era of discovery that will vastly expand the benefits of today's information technologies. When the poems, writings, visual arts, music, theater, new media, and more produced by the artists in our community reach across our city, nation, and world to inform and challenge all those who are ready to receive their messages. These challenges and a number of opportunities are pushing us, in fact, demanding that we engage with and impact our world in new ways. To do this, we must take the next step in what I'll call our journey of reconnection with our campus, our community, our city, and the wider world. It has been a true joy for me these past 2 months to immerse myself once again in the University of Chicago that I knew so well from my undergraduate studies of 40 years ago. The remarkable energy and vitality that courses through this university is what first drew me here as a student, and it has remained with me throughout my life. It is what drew me back here as president. I am now immersed in a listening tour that extends throughout the university and to many of our external partners. It's an extraordinary privilege to share in the full and astonishing scope of our work. In settings both formal and informal, I have borne witness to our familiar intertwined ways of thinking, teaching, and learning, and an inspiring academic culture like no other. In my recent day-long visit to the college, a colleague started by reading a text he had prepared on the 19th century conceptualization of the research university by Wilhelm von Humboldt. A lot of meetings start like that here. It was a vision of universities where research and teaching, the arts and the sciences are recognized as essential partners. This model inspired William Rainey Harper when he and our founders conceptualized the core values of the University of Chicago at its founding in 1890. Left implicit by our colleague was that we must start our discussion today from first principles, or we will surely fail in our efforts to plan our future. The foundational values of our university, though often tested, have remained steadfast and are our bedrock as we confront these challenges. Let me take a moment to outline these. Rigorous research and analysis that stand up to the test of scrutiny and argument. An empowering education that gives our students the habits of mind to approach any problem and learn any new topic. Innovation and discovery that lead to new knowledge and the next breakthrough. The freedom of expression and open discourse that enables these new discoveries to be made. And finally, the importance of pushing ourselves harder to embrace and expand the diversity of background, ideology, experience, and perspectives in our community, both as morally grounded and as the practical key to understanding the world around us and to solving problems to the benefit of our society. These core values inform our work, keep us on course in times of pressure or peril, bind our community together, and form the basis of this institution's culture. We are not known for accepting facile answers, for taking the easy path, or for being complacent, nor do we seek the safety of agreement for the sake of momentary harmony. It is these core values that tell us we must continue to look at the university through fresh eyes and ensure that it is poised to confront the emerging challenges of our time in original and significant ways. From the beginning, Harper expanded on Humboldt's model, designing our university to systematically engage with the world around it, to be a vital collaborator with other institutions in improving it. This can be seen in the first organizational chart of the university in 1891, which had 3 divisions: the university proper, the extension, the university extension, and the university press. 2 years later, 2 more of these divisions were added: the libraries, laboratories, and museums, and the work of affiliation. The latter corresponded to a regional network of high schools, colleges, and universities. The combination of the extension, the press, the libraries, laboratories, and museums, and the work of affiliation all together flowed from Harper's inspiring vision for how the work of the university proper should be tied directly and actively to the betterment of society at large. The University of Chicago has achieved so much in the 130 years since it opened its doors, likely far more than our founders could possibly have imagined. It is fair to say, however, that this early vision of a connected university in service to the public has not always been ascendant, nor did it remain as central a part of the story we tell ourselves about the journey of the university. Many of Harper's innovative outward-looking programs were scaled back within a decade, and while important features of the original vision endured, the university did in many respects become more inward-looking. In recent decades, the university has increasingly reconnected with this visionary aspect of Harper's early vision of the university. We have the opportunity now to build upon the 13 decades of the amazing work of this university in the pursuit of knowledge for the benefit of human life by reconceptualizing the ways in which we can become a more engaged institution, not separated from society, but advisedly interconnected with it. Before I talk about the work that lies ahead of us, I want to take a moment to acknowledge that every step of this next leg of our journey would not be possible were it not for those who laid the foundations of the road we will be traveling. Each of our past presidents, including Hannah Gray and Don Randall, had a hand in preparing this university for the challenges of the 21st century. I'd also like to acknowledge the many contributions made by Chancellor Bob Zimmer over the past 15 years as president, as he has positioned us so well to take the next step in the evolution of this institution. I especially want to thank him for his impassioned and principled defense of free expression. Please join me in offering our thanks to our prior leaders. Looking now to the future, what do I mean when I call for an engaged University of Chicago? An engaged university begins as a place where the discovery of new knowledge for its own sake is fostered and celebrated. Whether it be a new approach in philosophy, the translation of an ancient text that sheds new light on its meaning, the discovery of a new branch of mathematics, revealing the inner workings of markets, or an exploration of the origins of the universe, of life, of the mind, or even of peoples and cultures and the histories of their migrations. All of these are examples of the many gifts that the university brings to humanity, and that in their sum enable us to contribute as well through engagement. When I talk about engagement, I also mean enhancing the connections within our campus community, both here and abroad, to make the university an environment where all feel welcome and included, and that they genuinely belong, where we both talk and listen to each other, where we can have candid conversations and vigorous debates. Beyond the campus, engagement means listening and responding to those we serve locally, nationally, and globally. It means living up to our responsibilities to our neighbors as an anchor institution on the South Side and being a leader in engagement around the world. It means harnessing the power of our institution in collaboration with civic partners, foundations, governments, and corporations to create and learn new knowledge together, applying it to areas of critical need and impact, and sharing our knowledge broadly. We as a global community are faced with complex, multifaceted, and often interconnected challenges that detrimentally affect the lives of individuals, communities, and nations around the world, and if left unresolved, will continue to do so for generations to come. These are problems that no one expert or even institution can solve. They require approaches that span the disciplines, a mindset that embraces collaboration, and yes, the funding and philanthropic support to succeed. In short, these are problems that require an unprecedented level of engagement and connection, and which call upon universities to evolve in response. As focal points for the power of ideas and hubs for broad networks of partnerships, resources, and engagement, universities have a special role in addressing these problems from a multitude of angles and perspectives. At this moment in history, the University of Chicago is especially well poised to play such a role. Our history of discovery and innovation, of scholarship that transcends the disciplines, of free expression and academic freedom, our desire to forge new partnerships, the generations of graduates we have sent into the world, and who remain engaged with us, our brilliant faculty, students, and staff who are drawn here from across the globe, our research institutes, our affiliated laboratories, Argonne National Lab, Fermilab, and the Marine Biological Lab, and our enduring values provide the bedrock upon which we can build the foundations of this next stage of our work. We have already begun our journey of reconnection. To carry this vision of an engaged university further, we will need to continue to find new ways of doing things while holding fast to the distinctive academic style and core values that make us who we are. As we deepen our engagement with our neighbors, we must examine, acknowledge, and reflect upon our past actions with regards to development and housing on the South Side. These are essential steps in our ongoing efforts to be better listeners and partners with our neighbors who bring enormous creativity and resilience towards a vision of a vibrant and thriving community. A welcoming and inclusive campus is a key foundation to a culture of openness and engagement. We must continue to increase the diversity of our faculty, staff, and students. It is in the hands of each of us to foster that sense of belonging that is essential for our purpose. We must continue our commitment to access and affordability. Much progress has been made with respect to first generation, rural students, Odyssey scholars, but we have so much more work to do. An engaged University of Chicago will foster entrepreneurship and innovation in creative ways and will see itself as an active partner with other universities as well as with the broader ecosystem of the economies and cultures of Chicago, the region, the nation, and the world beyond. At the University of Chicago, some of the world's best thinkers, scholars, researchers, educators, analysts, advocates, artists, entrepreneurs, and creators are unified by a distinctive culture and a set of core values. That is our capital. When we engage it and connect it to the world at large, we will reconnect with and build upon Harper's inspiring vision and the beneficial works of my predecessors. By working to realize the engaged University of Chicago, we will reach higher levels of achievement than ever before, and we will bring entirely new benefits to humanity. Thank you once again for allowing me to be your president on this next arc.
And now, please stand while members of the University of Chicago Motet Choir sing the university's alma mater. Those who wish to are invited to join in the singing, and the words are provided in your program booklet. Please be seated.
for our new president, and for our loved ones who support him, for this wonderful community, and for all that we have witnessed today, let every heart give thanks. May our gratefulness for the joy we have received keep us mindful of the gifts we have yet to share. May our gratitude so inspire our generosity, deepen our engagement, demand our just deeds, that everyone we meet along the way finds in us a reason to be grateful. Let knowledge grow. Let life be enriched.
We ask that you remain in place until the platform party has withdrawn. This now concludes the 535th convocation of the University of Chicago.